So here we are. We're at the end of our very long series, right? The Good and Beautiful God, where we worked with the narratives that many of us have about God. Some of those strange ideas that we may have picked up along the way and correcting those. The good and beautiful life, applying God's teaching to ourselves. And then the good and beautiful community, which we're just finishing up now. Living out our Christianity amongst one another. Living out our Christianity in community. So let's see if I can get this to work. Which way? That way. So this morning we're going to talk about writing a soul training plan. Now, why would you want to write a soul training plan? We've been doing soul training exercises, but why would you want to write a plan? And the explanation is quite simple. That there's this sort of false narrative out there that, well, I don't really need a plan. You know, I just go to church and I read my Bible and, you know, it's going to happen. But it's not going to just happen automatically. You actually need to plan a little bit. The true narrative is this. If you don't have a target, you'll never know if you hit it or miss it. Oftentimes talk about this with my students. I have many students who come in and they take that very first class. It's called Interpreting 100, Introduction to Interpreting. And I like to ask them, why are you here? And I get the strangest response out of some of them. I don't know. I'm like, you know, there's a lot of other classes you could take with a lot nicer instructors than me. Are you sure you want to do this? There's got to be a reason why you're here. Oh, well, I kind of like sign language. One of the things that I have them do in the Interpreting 100 class is I have them write out their interpreter training plan. I'm like, you go out there on the website and you look up every class you need, and then you tell me what classes you've taken, and then you tell me the classes you plan to take and when you plan to take them. Because if you don't have some kind of plan, you're never going to know if you get there. Believe it or not, I have students who take all the classes and they don't realize that they've graduated. And I'm like, why didn't I see you at graduation? Oh, am I done? Yeah. Where's your plan? Let me look at it. You have to have a plan, otherwise you never know if you hit or miss the target. What is our target? Our target is to become more Christ-like. How do you know when you get there? Hopefully you have some kind of plan. I want to go back to the very first book for a second. In the very first book, The Good and Beautiful God, the author talked about will, human will. Oftentimes we've heard things like will and willpower and stuff like that. And one of the things he points out is that the will actually has no power. The will is simply your ability to choose. So if you want to choose correctly, you have to train for it. We need to train to choose correctly. If we want to act more like Christ, it doesn't come naturally. If you look at your fellow human beings, you're probably not going, wow, they are so Christ-like today. You're probably looking at them and going, they're so human today. But we need to train ourselves to choose correctly to act more like Christ on a regular basis. And we went through many, many, many different soul training exercises that help us build in the character of Christ. And we'll be talking about those a little bit later. There's a second false narrative. Not only is the first one, I don't need a plan. I can just do things at random and hopefully it'll work out. There's the, I can do it by myself. I don't need anyone else. It's just God and me. That is such a particularly American attitude. You know, American independence, I can do it all by myself. But we need one another. If you look throughout the gospel, you do not see individual disciples. You see that Jesus sends them out 2 by 2. He has a group of 12 disciples. He has a group of 120. He has different groups. And if you look at what Peter and Paul say about the early church, Peter describes it as a temple being built of living stones upon the cornerstone of Christ. That it's not a single stone that makes a temple. They must come together and be built together. Paul describes it as one body, that Christ is the head, and we are the arms and the legs and the feet and the hands. And that if it was all just one great big eyeball, we'd have a problem. You can't do it by yourself. We are relational beings designed to work together. The true narrative is that human beings are created as relational beings. A lot of people ask me, well, what do you mean by that? Think for a second. When God created us, according to the Genesis narrative, he breathed life into us. He gave us an eternal soul. Why would he give us an eternal soul? Because he wished to have a relationship with us. Because God is eternal, there must be some aspect of us that is eternal so that we can be in relationship with him. In the early Genesis narrative, it says that God looked upon Adam and said, it's not good for man to be alone, that he needs companionship. We are relational beings, and we must grow together in community. In your outline, it says belief versus movement. And I have two pictures I want to show you. Here's the first picture. And we've talked about this at church. I think, one of the things about part of your plan is to come to an understanding of this first picture here. I think this is the way that we've been doing church in the United States for a long time. And I think it's wrong. See, you see one group there, and they're surrounded by a circle. That circle represents doctrine. See, for a long time, it seems that the American church has focused on you must believe or you must profess certain doctrines or you're not in. You're outside the circle. It creates an us and them relationship. Those of us who are inside, who believe the correct things, and those of you who are outside and believe the wrong things. It's us and them. And to make it even worse, if you don't say that I believe these very certain things that create that little circle of belief, well, you're not a true Christian. I'm like, there's a difference between Christian and true Christian? Where'd that come from? But if you look at this too, guess what? It inhibits spiritual growth. Because that little defining circle is not allowed to change. You can't change the way you think. You can't change the way you believe. You just have to keep confessing the same old thing over and over again. And so it inhibits growth. I think there's a lot of things wrong with this American model of how church has been working. It's all about what you believe that makes you Christian or not Christian. Because it creates this us and them, and it inhibits spiritual growth. Let me show you what I think is a better model that we should be moving towards, and we've been talking about this at Open Door Ministries. This model. Right there in our bylaws and our Constitution, whatever it's called, it says that we are a Christ-centered church. And you'll notice that in this picture, Jesus is central. But you'll notice there's no circle. Because here at Open Door Ministries, we're okay if you believe slightly differently in doctrine. Are you a post-millennialist? Are you a premillennialist? We don't care. Our question for you is, are you moving closer to Jesus? Are you becoming more like him? In this picture, it's defined by movement, not by a boundary, but by movement. Either you are moving closer towards, or you're moving away. And as long as you are moving towards Jesus, as long as you are becoming more like him, we're good. See, the great thing about this, it doesn't create us and them. It just creates different people at different points in their journey. And it's not unthinkable that sometimes somebody might sit down and throw a tantrum for a while, but hopefully somebody will come by and give them a little kick and say, come on, let's go. It's this way, right? Time to get up. Sometimes you may have people who are drifting slowly away, but that doesn't mean they become a them. They're an outsider. They're not one of us anymore. They're not a true Christian. It just means that somebody needs to turn them around and say, come on, back this way. Back this way. It's okay. And the focus is on Jesus, not on individual doctrines. And we believe that this is the way that we need to go. We believe this needs to be part of our soul training plan, that we begin to define church by movement, not by doctrine. All right, moving on from that. Discipleship is about being disciplined. I have a picture of a swimmer here. I know there are some people out there who swim sometimes, but would they consider themselves a swimmer, a trained swimmer? Or, you have people who play golf occasionally, but would they consider themselves a true golfer or a weightlifter? See, each of these people have goals in mind, some target that they're aiming towards. But if they're going to become really proficient at it, if they're going to become a pro, they're going to have to train. And so in the same way with our own Christian life, if our goal is to become more Christ-like, we have to train towards it. I like the way that Paul says it, in that we're pushing towards a prize. We're like athletes. He casts it in the idea like we're athletes, training, pushing towards the goal, pushing towards the prize. Are you training yourself? Now, throughout all these weeks, we've been talking about various soul training exercises because regular training will produce results. Regular training will train your will to choose correctly. And here's all these various different ones. How many of you did all of them? Oh, you guys didn't do your homework? All right, that's an automatic fail in my class. I want all your homework, or no, just, right? No, it's okay. We're not going to slap you down with legalism and say if you don't do your homework, you're out, okay? But to look at each one of these as sort of a goal, something that helps you. For example, suppose you need to understand who God is better. Suppose you're dealing with some of these false narratives in your head. Silence and the awareness of creation. That being outdoors, looking at creation, Paul says that creation reveals the invisible attributes of God. And sitting in silence and allowing God to reveal who he is to you in creation is an amazing recreative experience in your mind as you really learn about who God is. I know that I've talked to various different individuals with this, and they say, wow, I realized how creative God is just looking at a sunset with all the colors, looking at all the different kinds of people that he has created, how creative he truly is. Maybe you look at creation and you realize how orderly God is, that everything has its place and fits in where it's supposed to. But if you want to know God better, you can sit in silence and in awareness of creation. How about if you're the kind of person who when you get up in the morning, you're either depressed or angry or grumpy or something like that? Maybe instead of, immediately slurping down 6 espressos, you stop to count your blessings. It'll change your attitude. It'll change your attitude about God. Instead of focusing on everything I don't have, let's look at God as our great provider as we say, this is where he's blessed me, and he's blessed me here, and he's blessed me here, he's blessed me here, and here, and here, and here. And all of a sudden, the way we think about God changes, and the way we think about our life changes, and the way we interact with other people changes. Because now we can walk out there and go, I'm really quite blessed. Compared to some other folks in some other countries, we're really quite blessed. When some villages struggle for just clean water on a regular basis, and we're all concerned about red cups, we are truly blessed, folks. If that's your biggest problem that causes outrage for you, you need to get on your knees and say, thank you, God. Praying the Psalms are such amazing things. In the Psalms, we have writers who have poured out their heart and soul before God. And when we pray those and we connect to those, we can understand, yes, Lord, this is how I feel too. And the amazing thing is, in the Psalms, so many times, there's a pivot point in so many of them where it's like, yes, I'm angry, or yes, I'm depressed, or yes, I'm frustrated. But Lord, look at all you've done for me. And it changes who we are. We come to a better understanding of who he is. How about something like sleep? So many of us just need some good sleep. That was a spiritual exercise. It was the first one that we did long, long ago. Please get some sleep to allow your body to renew itself, to allow your mind to renew itself, so that as you go out and encounter the world, you're not working on that fleshly nature of yours, but you can actually focus upon who God is. Margin, adding some margin to your life. How many of us have overbooked our schedules? Long ago, I read a book called Ordering Your Private World. It was by a writer, his name is Gordon MacDonald, and he said he would take his calendar and he would mark off certain blocks of time throughout the week. And he'd just mark appointment with G, which meant appointment with God. So that when people came to him and said, oh, can we meet? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do something else? And they said, well, I'm only available. And he said, I'm already booked. See, he created margin. Because he knew it was very important for him to spend that time with God so that he could spend time with other people and get to know God and understand God better. Martin Luther used to say that he got up every morning and he would pray for 4 hours. He said, I need that 4 hours just to make it through the rest of the day. Otherwise, I would never make it. Slowing down. How about play? We forget about play. God is a very playful God. We are his children, and he takes delight in us. And believe it or not, he's not about sitting up on a cloud waiting for a moment to zap you when you do something wrong. He would rather play with you. He wants to sing silly songs with you. He wants to draw pictures with you. He wants to be your Abba Father. I am convinced that somewhere up in heaven is the universe's largest refrigerator, and upon it are great paintings done by Christians that he puts up there and goes, hey, do you see what my kids did today? Looks pretty good. Keeping the Sabbath, media fast. Oh, maybe sometimes we need to take a break from Facebook and Twitter and all those other ones that we have out there and just spend some time with God. I see it in my students sometimes. They can't be away from their phones more than a minute because they're getting 50 or 60 emails a minute and tweets and updates and this. Sometimes you just need to turn that off so that you can be with God. It becomes disturbing. Hospitality. This is about training us to live in community, to share the blessings that God has blessed us with, to invite somebody into your home, to invite somebody into your life and say, hey, you know what? I found Jesus. Let me tell you how you can find Jesus. As we like to describe it, one beggar telling another beggar where they found bread. Welcome into my life. Welcome into my home. Become part of my family. Become part of my posse here. And we'll go out and we'll spend some time with each other. Secret service, doing small acts of service for other people, wanting no praise for it, wanting no recognition for it, wanting no credit for it. How many times have we seen this in church? And I know that you guys have seen it. We have seen people fight to be up here on the stage so people can look at them and go, hey, look at me, right? We've seen people get upset because, well, nobody acknowledged that I did this or that. Do it without wanting recognition. Do it so that you don't have to feed your own ego and pride. Little acts of secret service. A day without gossip. Sharing your faith, loving those we disagree with, and that's the tough one. Stewardship of our resources. I like de-accumulation. How many times are we so busy taking care of all the junk that we've acquired in our life that we don't have time for God? Maybe it's time to get rid of some of that junk. I find it amazing. This is one of the things that truly amazes me. Do you realize in America, there are many people who pay hundreds of dollars a month for storage? They are paying hundreds of dollars a month to put something somewhere they're not going to go see it for years. If you're not going to see it for years, get rid of it. Somebody taught me this little trick the last time I moved. They said, put everything in a box and seal it up. Okay? If after a year the box is still unsealed, just throw it away. Don't even open it up and look. Just throw it away. Whatever was in there, you didn't need it. If you needed it, you would have opened it up and gotten it. And I actually threw out 2 or 3 boxes. I have no idea what was in them. I'm sure that one day, like 10 years from now, I'm like, didn't I used to have? But who cares, right? I de-accumulated a little bit. I had to do that with all my books. I'm one of those people who, books everywhere, right? Every once in a while I have to go through and go, nope, my theology's changed, got to get rid of that one, right? Oh, I don't agree with this author anymore, he's gone. I have to get rid of all these books. You see boxes heading out. But what you do is we have all these soul training exercises. Some of them help you understand God better. Some of them help you live in community better. Some of them help you apply the teaching of Scripture to your life a little bit better. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to write your plan. Choose from the list. Choose a few. There's plenty of them up there. Choose a few that you think that you need. If you need to understand God better or apply teaching to yourself better or live in community better, take a couple of them. Choose a few. Don't choose them all, okay? And then add the practices that are not on the list. There are other practices that are not there. There are things like centering prayer that's not on there. Meditation that's not on there. You can add other practices that are not on the list. But choose a few, maybe add some other things that you think will help you. Figure out a timing and a frequency for them. Once a week, I'm going to do this. Once a week on Sunday, I'm going to do this. Twice a week, maybe on Tuesday and Thursday mornings when I'm off, I'm going to do this. Figure out a timing and a frequency. And then do this, and this is the most important one right here. Remember balance and moderation. Every year, in New Year's, something crazy happens. Everybody joins the gym because they are determined that I'm finally going to get in shape, right? And they go down there, and instead of practicing balance and moderation, they work out too much, too hard, too fast. And they come home all sore, and they give up. You need to balance and have moderation. Do not pick everything on the list. Pick 2 or 3 at most and say, okay, I'm going to start here until they become a regular habit. And then you can add something else. Don't go, I'm going to do 5 hours of prayer every morning for 7 days. It's not going to happen, and you're going to give up too quick. Try, instead of 5 hours of prayer a day, try 5 minutes. Okay? Set some reasonable goals for yourself. Allow others to help you create your plan. Allow others to help you create it. You know, sometimes we can't see what we really need, and it's our partner or our friends who go, yeah, you don't need to work on that. Let me tell you what you need to work on. Okay? And I think this exercise would be perfect for it. So allow some other people to help you create that plan. You know, we get together on Friday nights, we're going to be talking about our spiritual plans, how we're doing on those, and we can talk to each other and go, hey, you know, here's this working for me, maybe it'll work for you. We can talk about that and see how that works. And then finally, live it in community. Again, you can't do it by yourself. We are relational beings. Live it in community. Don't be afraid to go to somebody else and say, how's it going with this or that you're trying? Let other people know what you're trying to do so they can encourage you along the way. Maybe they're working on some of the same things you are, and you can share the difficulties you have and how you overcome some of those difficulties. But live it out in community, because our goal, once again, is to be transformed into the image of Christ. And if you don't have a plan for how you're moving there, how will you ever know when you get there? If you get there. With that that closes out for today. I'm going to ask the praise team to come on back as we close out in prayer.